Ernest Hemingway once said, "Every man's life ends the same way. It is only the details of how he lived and how he died that distinguishes one man from another." His words echo true for many, but many that knew him did so with negativity. But with that came passion, curiosity, and a willingness for adventure far outside his comfort zone. For the experience, Hemingway simply wouldn't be denied. Time and time again, Hemingway experienced close calls in his life, yet he persevered. And today, we will talk about only one of those instances. Welcome back to Tragedy with a View. I am your host, Kayla.
And I am Sam, the eternal summer co-host.
Yeah. It's coming to an end. I've talked to Caitlin, I've talked to Anne, I've talked to Samantha.
Lucky you guys.
I've talked to Amanda. I'm like,
well, then you have Kristen
and Chris. Yeah, there's lots of past voices and new voices coming, I'm sure.
Get you back to your variety.
Yeah.
I'm great and all, but other people have different opinions and thoughts, and those are important.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the variety and the different personalities that come with everyone. So I have three things that I want to talk or mention before we get into this episode. The first one is we are going to talk very briefly about suicide in this episode towards the end. If you or someone you know needs help, a professional is waiting for you. You can simply call or text the number 988 at any time of day or night. They are available 24/7, 7 days a week. The second thing that I want to say is that we are not recording this on September 11th, but it is coming out to the public on September 11th. And so I want to take a very quick moment to thank first responders and volunteers and anyone who puts themselves in potentially disastrous situations to help people that they don't know, because you are literally saving lives, and I want to take a moment to appreciate that.
We appreciate you here at Tragedy with a View.
We do. You are what make these stories possible. And then the last thing that I want to talk about before we get going on the episode is book club.
Book club? What's book club, Kayla?
As if Sam hasn't heard every single aspect going through my mind about book club.
No, please tell me again.
Okay.
I want to hear about book club.
I have this specifically written out because I knew that I would go too far if I didn't keep it as brief as possible. So for those of you who are interested in book club, you can join us on Patreon for $4 or $4 US. It's the Happy Hikers tier, and you will have access to the link that takes you over to Discord. My plan is to keep book club kind of separate from the podcast, meaning that Patreon is meant for the podcast episodes and exclusive content for the podcast, whereas the Discord channel is where all of the book stuff will be posted. And that's where you'll access the posts that we can talk about the books. That's where you can access voting for the books and kind of just keep everything separate. The plan is to have 2 weeks prior to the start of the month, voting will open for 5 to 7 days. I haven't really decided yet. And I want to have the book voted on and chosen at least 1 week prior to the first of the month. So that way people who like to buy the physical book have the time to be able to order it from wherever they order it from and receive it at least like within the first week of the month. So that way, if you're kind of a slow reader, I consider myself a slow reader. Yeah, so that way if you're a slow reader, you still have time to finish the book and be able to participate. I also will, when I'm listing the book options, I'm going to let you know if there's an Audible version of the book, or if there's a Kindle version of the book, or if the physical book is outrageously priced. I will also let you know that as well. So that way you can take those factors into consideration when voting for a book, if those things are important to you. There is going to be a theme for each month to the book options. For example, the month of October, we are going to be doing
aliens. No, not aliens. Probably not.
No, actually, it's actually going to be wildfires. And I kind of recognize that that's a little like quote unquote off brand, because October is kind of getting towards the fall and Halloween and spooky and those types of things. But we did just, I mean, we haven't come out of it yet, but we had some pretty severe fires this year. And I think it would be important and good to bring some awareness and maybe some more knowledge to those. And so that's why I'm picking wildfires for the first one. I think.
And it was because of that game, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe. Sam got us a game. Fire Tower?
Yes, it is called Fire Tower. You are spreading a wildfire. Or actually, the wildfire is spreading yourself, but you are interacting with it.
Yeah, and it's a fun game. And if you don't know it, you should buy it and play it with your friends and let me know, because it's a fun game. Inside of Discord, there is a specific channel for the book that is chosen each month, and I will be posting questions every Sunday. Of course, you are welcome to post in the channel about your thoughts, questions, or whatever you want at any time. You don't have to wait until Sunday, and you don't have to answer the questions. You can participate as much or as little as you want. You can read the book and kind of hover in the background if you want. I look forward to building this community with you. Thank you so much for being here. Voting starts in 6 days. Join us.
Be there.
Okay.
We made it.
I'm so sorry.
Kayla is very passionate about book club.
I love books.
Kayla does love books. She color codes them. She will take a picture. There's going to be a random picture of a bookshelf. If you know, you know.
You know what? I've actually been just like randomly throwing books on my shelf lately. I need to reorganize them before long.
Well, then you can take a picture of the finished product and people will be like, what is this?
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
You know. The only way to organize your book is to do so by color.
No.
Uganda.
Not true.
Is a country in Eastern Africa that is completely landlocked. And if you look at the horse head that is the shape of Africa, Uganda is where the eye is.
Okay, that's actually interesting. So if Africa is a horse head, is it the head facing left?
The nose is pointing south.
Oh, okay.
Here.
Got it. All right. Cool.
Ear, nose, neck.
And fly, landing on its nose.
Something. Yeah. So again, Uganda is about where the eye would be. Within Uganda is Rwenzori Mountains and Lake Victoria. The highest peak in this mountain range is...
Where was the hippo? Where was our hippo story? Was it near here?
Victoria Falls, yes.
Is it near there?
South.
Nice.
It's the southern country.
Here we go. Go listen to that one. You can learn the 4 names of hungry hippos.
You can.
If you know, you know.
Within Uganda, within the Rwenzori mountain range, the highest peak is 16,762 feet tall, or 5,109 meters. The upper region of this range is permanently snow-capped, and glaciers exist here as well, which is always a weird thing for me to think about with Africa is there's, you think of Africa and the animals that live there, and there's lions and elephants and giraffes and crocodiles and zebras and hippos and gazelles and
rhinoceroses
and all of these animals that you think live in super warm climates because you think Africa is warm. Clearly, I've never been there, though, because they've got snow-capped mountains and they've got penguins in the south. And, there's...
Have you not watched Madagascar, Kayla?
No.
We'll have to introduce her to Madagascar.
You will. Yeah, so it's just one of those things that's, kind of hard for me to wrap my head around is associating snow and glaciers with Africa. Uganda has 10 national parks within its borders, and one of those parks is the Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, which is home to an ancient forest that is home to about half of the mountain gorilla population. And I'm not going to name all of the parks here, but I do want to talk about Murchison Falls National Park. Murchison Falls National Park is the most visited park in Uganda, and it is here that the Nile River flows through a narrow crevice that is about 7 meters or 23 feet wide, and over the falls that are 40 meters or 141 feet tall.
That seems very narrow. That's probably spewing out pretty far.
It is, and the picture, of course, which will be posted on social media.
Oh, wow. That's pretty raging.
Yeah.
Is that the top and then this is the bottom?
Correct.
Okay, so it's almost like a whitewater rafting nightmare.
I do not get any ideas from that statement.
Don't do that. Don't try that at home. That looks very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. So in 1907, a community of people living around the falls had to evacuate due to flies spreading the sleeping sickness, which it was called the sleeping sickness due to there was a parasite that would be passed by the fly to a person, and the symptoms would include disrupting sleep patterns, but more basically meaning that it would make someone so confused that they wouldn't be able to stay awake. Relatively speaking, it is a short-term illness and lasts several weeks to a few months. And today, the statistics...
A few weeks to a few months. Short-term illness, guys. Don't worry about it. Just the common cold.
Oh, listen.
That sounds pretty rough. That's all I'm saying.
Statistics say about 1 U.S. citizen is infected per year.
I will not make any comments about the current stage of how we handle diseases.
Well, my question was how many Africans get infected each year? But
that's a good question. Is there any data?
It's really hard to answer that question because there's so many communities within Africa that don't have the same healthcare systems that we do and don't have the same vaccinations or access to medicine that we do. So it's a lot harder to compare the numbers.
I would agree.
So Murchison Falls has several lodges available for guests to stay at, along with multiple different safaris, from bus safaris and boat safaris, hot air balloon rides, hiking, bird watching, and chimpanzee tracking.
What does that even mean?
You track the chimpanzee.
For fun?
Basically.
Like you just follow them? I mean, that seems sort of interesting.
I would do it.
How long does it last? Is this multiple days?
No, the very short blurb that I read about it said that it takes 1 to 3 hours to locate the chimpanzees. So
basically you find them and then you're like, oh, wow, live zoo. You're kind of in the same, nature safari.
Potentially. I'm not entirely sure what all the tracking has to do with because that's not part of this story. It's just a fun fact about the falls today. Moving on, Ernest Hemingway has quite a background between writing books and covering stories of interest. He was born on July 21st, 1899, and was the oldest son of Clarence Edmonds Hemingway and Grace Hall Hemingway. He had 1 brother and 4 sisters and grew up in a suburb of Chicago. He started writing in high school, and once he graduated, he moved to Kansas City to work as a reporter for The Star. Hemingway tried to join the military as well, but was rejected because he had a quote-unquote defective eye. He was born nearly completely blind.
World War One, I'm assuming.
Yes, in his left eye. Still, though, in World War I, Hemingway worked as an ambulance driver for the Red Cross with the Italian infantry. On July 8th of 1918, he was injured when he was on the Austro-Italian front and had to be hospitalized in Milan. There he would meet Agnes von Kurowski, and they had a whirlwind romance, and when he proposed, she said no. But
Okay.
But
Rough.
this inspired his book, A Farewell to Arms, which was released in 1929.
Talking about the jaundice. That's the only thing I remember from that book.
He worked as a correspondent in the Spanish Civil War between World War I and World War II. But then during World War II, Hemingway found himself back in Europe as a correspondent, and after healing from a car accident, he sailed in an attack transport boat at the start of the invasion of France. It was there that he helped capture 6 Germans while working as a correspondent for I made a typo. It says Tornado Star, but that is not correct.
Kayla's got tornado on the brain.
We did have storms last night.
We did.
He was working as a correspondent. During the Second World War, Hemingway also flew on missions with the Royal Air Force several times, crossed the English Channel with American troops on June 6th, 1944.
He participated in D-Day?
Yes.
Oh.
And saw a significant amount of action during the Battle of the Bulge.
What in the world? I didn't know this guy was so active. I thought he just lived in a cabin.
No.
Jeez.
Nope. He received the department's Bronze Star for his acts in World War II. After the war, Hemingway left England for Cuba, where he focused on his own writings. And he was considered a master of dialogue, and that showed in his writings. Some of his greatest works include Death in the Afternoon, The Green Hills of Africa, A Farewell to Arms, The Old Man and the Sea, and For Whom the Bell Tolls. In 1953, The Old Man and the Sea won the Pulitzer Award for the fiction genre. Hemingway has been married 4 times. First to Hadley Richardson in 1921, divorcing 6 years later. Then to Pauline Pfeiffer in 1927, which, if you do the math, is the same year that he divorced Hadley. He and Pauline divorced in 1940. Again, the same year he divorced Pauline, he married Martha Gellhorn, and they divorced in 1945. And in 1946, Hemingway married again, this time to Mary Welch. Hemingway decided that since he loved Africa and had already received an assignment for a local magazine, he decided that he would take his wife Mary there as a belated Christmas gift. Mary and Hemingway had been married for 8 years when they left on this trip in 1954. The first week that Hemingway and Mary were in Africa, they spent at Amboseli National Park, which is located in Tanganyika and near to Mount Kilimanjaro. In their last week there, they decided to go sightseeing by plane and chartered a Cessna piloted by Roy Marsh for a private tour around Uganda. Their plan was to see Lake Victoria, Lake Albert. It would then take them over the Great Rift Valley to Murchison Falls. Murchison Falls is one of the least accessible spots in Uganda, and this trip would total 600 miles. The pilot had to suddenly dive down in order to avoid hitting a flock of ibises who were flying through the air.
Okay.
And as he did so...
It's very Africa.
It is. But as he did so, the rear wheel of his landing gear caught on an abandoned power line from the days that there was a railroad running through the area. And this forced...
So, like, really low.
Yeah.
This guy, they were really getting a sightseeing. They were, like, flying...
They were trying to get as close as they could.
Oh.
And then they had to dive, and then they caught the abandoned power line, and this forced the pilot to, quote-unquote, crash land. Basically, the only thing that was wrong with the plane was the rear landing wheel was damaged. So when they looked out the window, they saw that there were 6 crocodiles laying on the banks of the Nile River, and then directly through where the plane had landed was a trail of what looked like several elephant footprints. Although Roy landed the plane with extreme precision, and even though the plane was seemingly fine, they didn't have a way to take off at this point. So Hemingway, Mary, and Roy were forced to camp overnight in the African jungle while they were surrounded by crocodiles, hippos, and elephants. As the day turned into dusk, the trio had to move farther off of the riverbanks, where they had kind of found what they thought would be a safe place, and they had to move off the banks because the mosquitoes were so bad.
Well, I also think being near water is probably not safe because that's where all the animals will gather.
But they also wanted to be near water because that was the most likely place for them to see or get picked up.
Okay.
Yeah. So
don't get lost in Africa. That's my suggestion.
That is a good suggestion.
Don't crash.
Moving off of the river, however, would make it more difficult for someone to find them if they started searching in the middle of the night. During the night, the pilot and Hemingway were kept awake by the noisiness that surrounded them, and they were also a little fearful that Mary, who had a habit of snoring, was practically telling the elephants to come to them.
Oh, good for him. She snores. 8 years of marriage. Good job for him.
Yeah. People relatively quickly found out that Hemingway and Mary and the pilot were missing when they didn't make their pre-arranged checkpoint at Misindi near Lake Albert to refuel the plane.
So at this point, Ernest Hemingway is like popular. Like, he's like a celebrity.
Essentially.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So.
Wait, what year was this?
1954.
Okay.
At 5 p.m. on January 24th, the plane was reported missing. Once reported missing, a search was launched. And so then the following morning, a tourist boat was on a cruise tour with a honeymooning couple directed by Captain Edwigis Abrero. He spotted the trio, picked them up, and brought them back to a nearby town called Butiaba, which is located near Lake Albert. Roughly at the same time, the assistant district commissioner was also sending a telegram to have people search the area that is where the Nile River conjoined with the falls. And one flight went over the falls and spotted the plane, but did not see any people there, and reported back to the district commissioner that no survivors were found. News outlets then heard no survivors were located from this crash, and they assumed that that meant that everyone had died. So they started reporting Ernest Hemingway has died.
Yay, the media.
Roughly
back in 1952, still
54.
killing it. The 50s, still
Close
killing
enough.
it. 70 years ago.
Roughly at the same time, the trio was being picked up and sailed to safety. There were 3 rangers in a Land Rover who were searching the ground, and 2 planes in the air. One was a Lancaster bomber, and the other was a de Havilland Rapide. And they were clearly searching like individual areas of the park. So you could see the planes, like they were flying in one particular area. They weren't crossing over each other's boundaries or anything. The Lancaster bomber then turned and flew over to the Rangers in the Land Rover and dropped a message that had a colorful handkerchief tied to it. And the message read, Have located a plane close to the falls. Please go there, and if all is well, stand on the wing and wave your arms. Pilot of the Lancaster, Captain R.C. Jude for the British Overseas Airway Corporation, identified the plane on the ground near Lower Victoria Nile. From what he could see of the plane, it was not damaged, and he suspected that everyone on board had escaped. He was confident that this was the correct plane because he could see the identification numbers on the tail wing, and so he was able to pretty easily verify that this plane was the one that they were looking for. Because there were no bodies, no debris, and the plane door had clearly been shut behind them, one of the Rangers stood on the wings and waved his arms. In acknowledgement, the Lancaster's wings waggled side to side, and then he flew off. The pilot of the other plane was T.R. Cartwright, received the same message and flew towards Butiaba and met the Hemingways there. So all of this was happening without like a lot of radio communication. And so they didn't really know that Ernest Hemingway and his wife and the pilot were all okay. They were just kind of hoping at this point that they were all right. So finally, they were on another plane, this time piloted by the same T.R. Cartwright. They were getting ready to take off and start their journey to get essentially back home. When the plane took off, it didn't angle far enough up as it went off the end of the runway, collided with an anthill and then a thorny bush, and caused the pilot to lose control, and that plane crashed. This time...
Hitting an anthill, huh? That'll get you.
This time, the plane went up in flames. The pilot kicked out one of the windows and helped Mary out of the plane. Hemingway was too large to fit through the window, so he was forced to go through flames in order to open the door and escape. Everyone made it out of the plane. However, there were injuries this time. Hemingway's right arm received third-degree burns. He fractured his skull. He had a concussion, a rupture to his right kidney, and both his liver and spleen were injured. Because of his injuries, Hemingway was unable to write or type for several months, and his right arm continued to cramp up on him for longer than that. Mary, it sounds like, though this information was much less descriptive, it sounds like she received a concussion along with memory loss and broken ribs.
Honestly, I wonder after these experiences... Well, technically, see, I didn't know about all of the crazy stuff that happened to him earlier, so his writing was probably the same. Because he was literally involved in D-Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is like, yes, this was a near-death experience, but like it probably doesn't compare to the
other
bad things that he saw earlier, so...
Yeah. So... After this, Hemingway and Mary decided that they were not going to get on another plane so fast.
Nice. Good idea.
Yeah, they declined the offer for another flight.
Fly with someone different. This guy had crashed 2 planes.
No, these are 2 different pilots.
Okay.
Yep, 2 different pilots.
Rough.
2 different planes.
So, well, what's the common denominator between both planes?
Mary and Hemingway.
Rough.
So... Instead of flying, they ended up being driven 170 miles, first to Masindi and then to Entebbe. When Hemingway and Mary emerged from the car, it was noted that Mary was limping and Hemingway had a bandage around his head and on his arm, but he was carrying a bunch of bananas and a bottle of gin.
Bananas?
Yeah.
Cool. He's making is there any drinks with bananas?
I hope not. It's like Schitt's Creek.
I did confirm that my brother did try to make wine with bananas.
And?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to ask him again.
Okay. On April 17th, 1954, Hemingway wrote a letter to his lawyer, Alfred Rice. This letter was 4 pages long and detailed what happened and discussed some other details of the trip and financial information. He wrote this letter while he was in the Gritti Palace Hotel in Venice, Italy, and used the hotel stationery. One of those details included, and I find this extremely interesting, but Hemingway was upset with Abercrombie and Fitch, the clothing brand, because at the time they sold shotguns. Hemingway had purchased one of these shotguns and it was shipped to the wrong address. So he had purchased this gun intending to use it to go hunt lions while he was in Africa. And because of the company's quote unquote carelessness in shipping, it imperiled both my life and my livelihood, because he then had to borrow a gun that had to be held together with Scotch tape.
What? I mean, I would be more concerned on where the gun went. I guess I don't know if they had gun registration laws at that point.
Yeah, very
Probably
different
not.
world, I think. So
Go get yourself an Abercrombie and Fitch shotgun, guys.
I don't know that they have any anymore. Anyways, so this letter was unintentionally misdated by Hemingway, and instead of 1954, he dated it as 1953. As this letter was then put up for auction along with 8 others, so they were all bid on separately on August 31st of 2023. It was put up for auction by Nate D. Sanders Auctions, which is located in Los Angeles, and it is an auction house that specializes in selling these autographed items and letters and collectibles and fine arts.
Are you going to let me guess?
Yes, I will let you guess.
Good.
I will tell you this letter received 12 bids.
Okay, yeah, give me some context. Okay.
Which is apparently high in
this sort of market.
In this
market, yeah.
Yep, in this market. How much in US dollars do you think it sold for?
Okay, so 2023, it is historical memorabilia of a very famous American author. I'm going to guess. I need a hint. Is it over $1 million?
No.
Okay, so it's under. Okay, good. Okay, that helps me. I'm going to guess they were sold separately?
They were sold separately.
Is this for all of them, or are you?
This is specifically for the letter that he wrote about this experience.
My 2 numbers that come to my head are 120,000 and 170,000.
237,055.
Honestly, I give myself some credit. That was pretty good. That was still close.
Yeah, especially for being your first question was if it was over $1 million. That kind of was like, ooh, he's thinking too high.
Yeah.
But
I just needed to know, like, was it obnoxious or was it reasonable? Not reasonable, but
yeah.
Did Bill Gates decide to buy these papers for $20 million or
yeah.
This is literally a sheet of paper.
4 sheets of paper, actually.
4 sheets of normal paper.
So after this, Hemingway would have a difficult time. He had received at least 8 other major concussions during his life, and it is believed that it was after this particular concussion that Hemingway started on his mental decline, suffering from memory loss and constant headaches. In 1960, Hemingway left Cuba and moved to Ketchum, Idaho, where he was hospitalized twice by the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, due to anxiety and depression. During his hospitalizations, he received electroshock treatments. However, 2 days after being released the second time, on July 2nd, 1961, Hemingway saw no other way out and committed suicide. And so that is a very short history of Ernest Hemingway.
Rough. Do you know when he lived out in the woods? Wasn't he pretty famous for just... Maybe it wasn't as long as I thought.
I know that he had spent a decent amount of time in Cuba.
Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong person. I think I'm thinking of the right person. Maybe it's Thoreau.
He is a very experienced, or he was a very experienced hunter fisher, and often was found in the woods between Walloon and Charlevoix lakes.
All right, I might be thinking of the wrong person.
He sought solace in Yellowstone National Park. Yeah, I'm not sure. It definitely looks like he bounced around quite a bit, especially in between marriages, or not necessarily in between marriages, but
as random Christmas gifts.
When he... Listen, I would take a Christmas gift to Africa.
And that may end up becoming a possibility.
Eventually.
Slowly but surely.
I want to go to Egypt first.
Okay. You want to see the aliens?
Pyramids.
The aliens. That built the pyramids.
Listen, I don't care who built the pyramids. I just want to see them.
Guys, everyone who's listening right now, the pyramids are a big, huge ram pump. And that's how the Egyptians got water. Look it up.
Okay.
Hey, we're coming towards October. It's almost conspiracy theory.
We are. And if you've listened this far, thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And come back.
Join book club.
Yeah, come back. We've got more things coming down the line for you. So.
Yes. Enjoy me while I last.
Yeah. He'll be here for a while.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for listening. I saw a meme today about it was a cartoon, and there were two people walking in the rain, and the person on the left was like, "Who actually enjoys spending all day walking through the rain?" And they're camp hikers, backpacks on, whatnot. And the person on the right, who was like leading the way, said, "It builds character." And I was like,
True.
I labeled it Sam for the one saying it builds character. Okay.
Thank you for listening. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe from wherever you listen to Tragedy with a View. To get access to ad-free episodes, bonus content, and more, please join us on our Patreon. The link will be in the show notes. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And to share a story of your own, send us a Campfire Confessional email at tragedywithaview@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.